Well, happy Father's Day. What a U.S. Open. Bryson DeChambeau gets it done, wins a second U.S. Open in the last several years. And probably, you could argue, equally as big of a story. Rory chokes, blows a short putt on 18 that would have essentially forced a playoff. And his streak of 10 plus years keeps on rolling, and Rory remains majorless. But Bryson captivated everyone in the Carolinas, playing up to the crowd, the emotion. Um, what a story! I mean, what a win by the former, used to be known as the big golfer. Definitely lost some pounds, but God, he's hitting bombs. Was kind of flying all over the place today, but we will dive into that. The drama of this tournament. That was as good of a Sunday as you're going to get. I mean, Rory versus Bryson essentially coming down the stretch doesn't get much better. We'll discuss the course because it definitely showed its teeth. Only 8 guys under par, a stark contrast from Valhalla when everyone was shooting 10, 15, 20 under par. That was an old school U.S. Open, and Bryson earned it. And Bryson's having an incredible season. Scotty Scheffler, worst tournament in years, nowhere to be found. Kind of got lucky to make the cut. We'll dive into it all coming up, but before we dive in to the U.S. Open, do you want to go to something like the U.S. Open? Go to an event, get outside, enjoy yourself, have a little fun. The PGA Tour still has a bunch of tournaments left this season. They have their playoff stretch coming up here after the British Open. If you want to go to a baseball game, if you want to go to, I guess the NBA is about to end, but I've had a lot of people hit me up, say, hey, John, because of your friends at Gametime, the official ticketing app of this podcast, I've already got football tickets for the fall. You want to go to a game, an NFL game, your team's coming to your town. If you don't live where you grew up, if you want to go watch a college football game, we got you covered, because take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code JOHN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code JOHN for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Doesn't get much better than that. It really doesn't. And Pinehurst now going back to 1999 with Payne Stewart and Phil Mickelson going at it. I guess the only difference here is Rory and Bryson were not in the same group. Something I think golf needs to figure out. Just you can place whoever you want in the groups. Put Rory and put Bryson in the same group. But we were lucky today. It didn't really matter much because Rory came out the gate swinging, birdies 1, and then gets just lightning hot. He birdies 9, he birdies 10, he birdies 12, he birdies 13. And everyone on the internet was like, he's up 2 with 5 to play. Well, Bryson still had 6 to play because he was 1 behind. Then Bryson knocks it on 13, birdies that, and then let's face it. I hate using this term because golf's really hard. I don't care if you're Rory McIlroy or you're me or you. It is a difficult sport. It's hard to make putts. And we have seen some legendary choke jobs in this sport. A couple years ago at the PGA Championship when Justin Thomas won, Mito Pereira knocks it in the water. The most legendary one of all time is John Vandervelde in the Open when he I think triples the last hole, ends up going to a playoff. But for Rory's standard, that was a choke job. He blew it. 3-putt 16, and then the putt on 18. And I thought Brandel nailed it. He said, listen, to the naked eye, that looks like a really good chip, but that is the wrong spot to leave it. And meanwhile, Bryson's probably 150 yards behind him under a tree and against a root. You could tell Bryson wasn't comfortable. He tried to get a ruling for a drop. Thank God the rules official said you're not getting a drop. And he basically had to hit in a bunker, which was going to be, as he just said, when he received the trophy, it's the best shot of my life. And for Rory to miss that putt, you almost knew it was inevitable. He lost it right there. And listen, he's had a chance over these last couple of years to win a couple majors. You know, he LACC, he did not make a putt. Same thing with the British Open a couple years ago when Cam Smith won. He could not make a putt. That was not the case today. I mean, early on in the round, he's draining putts. Bryson Bate essentially won the tournament the first 3 days because he gave himself a lead. He shoots 67, 69, 67 as a 3-shot lead coming into today and was able to just kind of hold his mud. It's not like he ran away with it. Hell, he was celebrating incredible up and downs for pars. And once Bryson knocked it on 13, you're like, Rory doesn't have any margin for error. And I'll be honest, I thought he was going to make it on 18. Even though his feet were kind of open, he was kind of lined up weird, and that ball never had a chance. And then the moment he missed and Bryson hits it in the bunker, you're like, okay, we're going to a playoff. Now, historically, the playoff has always been, and there hasn't been a playoff in the U.S. Open since Tiger and Rocco. I was like, okay, 18 holes. We're getting 18 holes tomorrow. I'm a podcaster. I plan on watching it all. And then Tarico chimes in. It's now a 2-hole aggregate. I'm like, okay, we get extra golf. I would imagine they just play 17 and 18. Rory DeChambeau, it's going to be incredible. And then Bryson, that bunker shot he hit on 18 was just freaking remarkable. I mean, once he hit it that close, there was no way he was missing that putt. And obviously he doesn't. He wins his second U.S. Open. And I don't think I can remember anyone in sports. We've seen guys go the other way. Someone that was really celebrated, obviously had let's use LeBron as an example. In Cleveland, he was a rock star. He had the entire state of Ohio behind him. And then when he left, he kind of went full heel and everyone rooted against him. It's very rare. You see it in baseball sometimes when guys leave teams. We saw it back in the Yankees and Red Sox heyday when a guy would jump over. This was the opposite. Bryson was not well liked. People almost rooted against him. They thought he was a weird dude. And, in the golfing world, he had done things to rub people the wrong way. Then he bulks up like he's about to play defensive tackle in the NFL. And then he goes to live and he kind of gets skinny, but he keeps hitting 350, 360 yard drives that are still just remarkable to watch. And now he's fun. And you know what golf has really missed? And I said this when the Live PGA Tour thing happened. One problem is golf just has a bunch of likable guys. And in any sport, in any form of entertainment, you need to have people that I like rooting for and people that I root against. And then they took all those guys. But then somehow Bryson comes storming back, feels like a completely different human being, has a YouTube channel that everyone I play golf with or everyone I meet that follows golf, like, hey, are you watching Bryson's YouTube? It's a pretty big deal. It gets a lot of views. For example, Live last week got under 200,000 people watching. He does 200,000 people in 5 hours when he posts a video on YouTube. And he's become really likable. And then you watch this whole week how he's playing with the crowd. One thing Tiger did a really good job of. Now, he was constantly in just these miraculous moments, partly because Tiger would spray it around and then have the craziest up and downs you've ever seen. The fist pumps were a huge part of Tiger's legend, his emotion. You could feel him when you watched him. Obviously, his resume by the mid-2000s was unlike anything we'd ever seen beside Jack, but you felt his presence. Now, Tiger was not high-fiving people in the gallery. He was not pointing at the crowd. But when you saw him make a big putt or have a big moment, he'd pimp that shot a lot like Bryson did on hole 17, or he would do the crazy fist, up and down, both arms, go nuts, and that's what Bryson was doing. You know why? Fans like that. It's entertaining. It's fun. And that's what Bryson has become. Fun. Scotty, who had a bad week, is on one of the greatest runs we've ever seen. There's not much emotion there. You don't see much. By far, not even close, the most interesting thing that'll probably ever happen to Scotty on or off the course was getting arrested a month ago and going in the orange jumpsuit. But he's not a big fist bumper. He's not a big, lay it all out there when he does something awesome. And Bryson's the opposite. And listen, whether you liked him or you didn't a couple years ago, when he's on the screen, I remember when I was young and grew up a big San Francisco Giants fan, and Barry Bonds became very polarizing. Obviously, cream, the clear, he looked like Ray Lewis in his prime. But when he came up to the plate, Everyone stopped to watch. Whether you hated him, whether you loved him, you had to see it. And that's kind of what Bryson has become. You just got to watch. And then the more you watch, you kind of find yourself rooting for him. Now, your boy might have had a little parlay and might have just won almost, 20K. So I was definitely invested in his success this weekend. But even if I had no money on the guy, like a month ago at the PGA, he was riveting TV. His whole operation is unlike anything we've ever seen. Yesterday, he's asked on Saturday about how he soaks his golf balls in salt water to find the balance and make sure none of the golf balls are off. All of his irons are the same length. Now, sometimes he hits like a 9-iron from 200 yards and you realize, well, his the degrees on his clubs are much different than basically everyone on tour and every normal person that plays golf. But you're like, what is going on? And he has these crazy 3D irons. He's playing these crazy rope draws. But here's the thing about Bryson. He's not some golf creation in a lab. This is one of the, I would say, most talented golfers of his generation. He went to SMU as a blue chip high school kid and became an individual national champion in college. Then he won the U.S. Amateur. Now he's won multiple U.S. Opens. And before he went to live, it's not like he had never won on the PGA Tour. He was winning. This guy's a winner. He's been a winner since he was a young guy. This is a blue chip player, a lot like Rory, an elite talent as a youth and has carried it through his career. And that's what we're watching with Bryson. And you're seeing a guy right now who is in the peak of his powers. If it wasn't for a couple bad chips at the Masters, he would have been right in that thing. He finished tied for 6th. He easily could have won the PGA Championship. If the PGA Championship would have been 75 holes and not 72 holes, I think he would have won. Even Xander admitted, I wanted no part of a playoff with Bryson DeChambeau. Finishes 2nd. Then he comes to Pinehurst, which historically with Bryson, you're like, it's much more about placement, short game, putting, doesn't quite feel. Well, here's the thing with Bryson. His short game is awesome. I'm not saying he's Brad Faxon or Steve Stricker with a putter in his hand, but you are much more confident when that weird stick is in his hand than you are with Rory McIlroy. He is a fantastic putter. And you're seeing a guy right now who has it figured out. And listen, Scottie Scheffler is the best player in the world this week. Remove it, but not debatable. You could make a very easy argument that Bryson's the second best player. I mean, Xander is having a fantastic year. He is an elite player. Won the PGA, finishes top 10 here. He's in the mix every single week. He's an elite player. Rory is awesome. Like Bryson is every bit their equals. And now what we're seeing is in these big moments for all these guys with Liv, here's the thing for Koepka. It was awesome to watch him win the PGA Championship last year and get his 5th major. If I had to set the over-under on Brooks Koepka's majors moving forward, I'd probably put it at 0.5. Like, I'm not expecting him to win another one. If I had to put the over-under, even Rory McIlroy, Rory's going to win a major. I feel very, very confident on that. Is he going to end up with 10? Probably not. But is he more likely to end up with 6 than he is where he sits now at 4? Yes. I don't know when he's going to win it, but you put yourself in the mix enough, like he has several times in the last 3 years, right? Could have won at LEC, could have won at British. This was easily his best chance. He's going to win it. Bryson is winning it. Bryson did get it done. I'd put his over-under on majors for his career probably around 4.5, 5.5, somewhere in that range. Because Bryson, to me, feels like a 5-6 major guy much more than he does a 2 major guy. He's 30 years old. Now, the health on Saturday, his hips give him problems because of the way that he speed trains. But then you watch him hit, you're like, it doesn't really look like he's slowing down. It doesn't really look like it phases him. And his touch around the greens, obviously what he did on 18 out of the sand, if you put the average, like low handicap guy in that spot, I think there's a pretty good chance most people end up with double. They either blast the ball way over the green or they hit it way short, then they 3-putt. That shot, and there was a shot earlier in the round, was at hole 10 where he left it short of the bunker, and Brando's like, this is really freaking hard. Hits a lob wedge like 5 feet, nails it for birdie. And so if you're telling me a guy that can hit it 350 yards pretty easily, when it came to the drivable 13th hole, Rory hit driver way over. Now he still ends up making birdie. I was like, why didn't he just hit a 3-wood and run it on? Well, what does Bryson do? Hits a 3-wood, runs it on. Easy 2-putt. Could have been an eagle. And I think he thought it was in. He left it a little short. But you have a guy with length we've never seen in a day and age where everybody is hitting the ball a mile long. This guy's deeper than them all. And honestly, it's not that close. And when he really gets into it, especially on some of these courses with these hard pan fairways, he's hitting like 370, 380 yards. And then forever, it's like, well, he's got the one leg club, no touch. How's he going to work his sand wedge and his lob wedge? Well, he's clearly got that figured out. And then he's an elite putter. Now, listen, there's a lot of talk in golf, Twitter, Reddit about the Olympics and their rules. He can't be in the Olympics. I do think that's stupid. Because to me, it'd be pretty easy if there were no requirements. Who are the best 3 American golfers to represent us in Paris? It would be Scotty, Bryson, and Xander. They would be the pick. Now, Bryson's not going to get to go. He didn't get to go the last time because I think he got the vid right before, and Bryson didn't get the jab, so they didn't let him go. But it's clear, and this is where the world rankings and all, no one gives a shit about any of that. Just watch the guy play. When he's on, he's every bit as good as Rory and Scotty. And one thing Rory just can't do for whatever reason is find a way to win these tournaments. And Bryson can't. Like Bryson played winning golf at Valhalla. Xander just made one more putt, but he didn't lose it. Like Rory, and who knows? If Rory makes that putt, there is no guarantee that he's going to win in extra holes against Bryson. Honestly, there's probably not a soul that would have confidence that Rory would take him down. But at least you would give yourself a chance. Instead, he didn't. He missed it. And listen, it's golf. Sometimes you miss those putts. But like, Rory's one of the most talented players in the history of the game. But it does feel like something's missing. Because he has been on like a 2-year heater of just playing at an elite level. Besides Scotty, he's better than everyone on the PGA Tour, and that includes Xander. But in these big 4 tournaments, which he's even admitted it's the only thing he's playing for, it just doesn't happen. LACC and the old course, it's like he just couldn't make anything. And then today, he's draining every fucking putt from like 15 to 25 feet. It feels like Tiger Woods. You're like, this guy is going to run away with this thing. And then you come down the stretch, you 3-putt 16. And I think that has to be, I mean, at the level in which, and they were talking about this on the broadcast, the pressure in which he's under. Well, yeah, when you're Phil Mickelson, when you're Tiger Woods, now with Scotty Scheffler, like the pressure you're under is greater than everybody else. It was the same thing with Steph Curry and LeBron and Peyton and Tom. Like that's part of being the lead dog. That's part of being, the guy carrying the flag for the sport. You got to come through in that moment. It's not a 15-footer to force a playoff. Those miss and make league. I mean, sometimes you lip out, sometimes 3-footer, you got to make that putt. And you got to give yourself an opportunity. Now, that being said, it's a devastating L for him, which is crazy because in this sport, he didn't lose. He beat literally every other person beside Bryson DeChambeau. So, and most people, there were 8 guys under par. He boat raced. He destroyed. He ruined. Like Scotties, the Koepkas, those guys couldn't hold his jock this week. But that's not really what he's gunning for. We see him on a weekly basis kick most people's butt. It's about coming through and making that putt when it matters the most. And then in extra holes, finding a way to get it done. And let's face it, some of these visuals we see when Rory was a little chubbier and he was wearing the Oakley, it doesn't mean much to most. Now it's on his resume. It's why he's become such a legend over the years because he won the major so early. But we're living in 2024 and we're going on a guy who's approaching his mid-30s. Like I said, I think he's going to win more majors. You can't be in the mix this often, be that good, and have the ability to play so many different courses and contend and not eventually have it fall your way. Xander is a great example. Xander was like, he's never going to get over the hump. He's never going to get over the hump. Well, if you're in the mix, 50% of the time for a 7-year stretch, eventually some of the things are going to break your way. So over the next 3 years, if I was a betting man, Rory McIlroy is going to win another major. But this one stinks. This one hurts. And this one, to me, is dramatically worse than when he essentially lost to Cam Smith and lost to Wyndham Clark. This one has to be, and he declined. They tried to interview him after. He declined, which I don't blame him. Got to be pretty rattled. And Rory's the last guy to get on for, not being gracious with the media and all that stuff. But you saw in a 2-hour span, Bryson stole this thing because he had himself a little cushion, and then it was kind of coming off the rails, and he just grinded and he found a way. And now it feels like he's a little bit of the people's champ. And I've said this on Instagram because some of these videos, he feels like the new Phil, high-fiving people, signing people's hats mid-round, pointing at the crowd. There is just something, and there were a lot of stories over the years, like Phil's kind of a snake oil salesman, Phil's kind of a phony. None of the fans cared. You know why? Because Phil was enjoyable to watch. Phil was entertaining. And that's what this is. This is entertainment. Now, part of what adds to your legend as a golfer, it's what made Tiger such a legend, is it felt like he never choked. He never blew it. And Phil went through a stretch where he screwed up a lot. And a guy with 6 majors, Phil could have about 15. But that added to the Phil story. So this moment for Rory, as shitty as it feels, it's way better than finishing 11th and having 7 of your shots shown on Sunday. But I can't imagine for a guy who's just playing 4 majors now. Like once Brady got to like 4 or 5, it's like he's only playing for Super Bowls. That's how like the Mahomes and Andy Reid Chiefs feel. The only thing that matters, I said this when the schedule came out, doing win-loss or travel or they got to go east to west or none of that matters anymore. There's one schedule that is completely irrelevant in the NFL, and that's the Chiefs schedule. Because they're only games that matter. I'm not saying we won't watch and we won't talk about it, but as we've seen the last couple of years, games in October and games in November are irrelevant. They do not matter. They get judged purely on January games. That's it. And they're the only team in the NFL that can say that. And I think Rory, probably more than anyone, even more than Scottie Scheffler, is only judged on these weeks. No one cares, and whether it's fair or not, when he wins the Memorial, or if he wins one of these playoff events, or if he ends up winning the FedEx and taking down Scottie. It just does not matter. And I also think that's a cool part of sports when you get to that level. You're just judged, at the highest level of your profession in your sport. Whether it's like, listen, I got a little money on the Oilers. Like McDavid at this point in time, everyone knows he's Hall of Fame talent. He's going to win all these MVPs. He's dominating everyone. He's just judged on the playoffs. And can he win a Stanley Cup? And because Rory banked some early, he doesn't have like the ghost of can this guy ever win it? But he does have, is a guy ever going to win one again? And listen, you know where I stand, but you see moments like today and you're like, if you were on the side of the argument, he's never going to get it done. I don't know what I could come back besides just, well, statistically it would show if you just stay in the mix, because like today's a good example of the 18th hole, and neither of them hit the fairway. And one guy ends up with a 5 and one guy ends up with a 4. And let's face it, Rory's up and down, in theory, should be a lot easier. But he left the ball above the hole to the left and had a tricky little putt. Bryson, meanwhile, leaves it below the hole, knocks it in. And I thought the whole Bryson experience is everything I want as a sports fan. Now, I know we get a lot of people listening to these shows that aren't big golf people. You just like my football stuff and come for it. And I'm a much bigger golf fan than probably 98% of the country. I understand that. And I also know where golf falls on the hierarchy of importance. But if you like sports and you like to be entertained, it is hard to not watch Bryson these last several days and have a smile on your face and having fun. And sometimes, and you've seen this with the Caitlin Clark discourse, like, guys, I'm already out. Like, I can't keep up. The average sports fan that's coming in to watch doesn't want all this bullshit. They just want to watch her play basketball, shoot some threes, and have fun. Because at the end of the day, sports are supposed to be fun. This is an escape. I mean, this is my life, but for the overwhelming majority of people that sit on their couch and watch all the sports, whatever sport you may like beside football, baseball, basketball, racing, you name it, horse racing, I don't care, hockey, you want to enjoy it. You want to be entertained. And I think Bryson is the primo number one golf entertainer. He is, listen, Scotty's season is going to go down, has potential, go down as one of the great all-time seasons in the history of the sport. It's not even remotely close in terms of entertainment value when you watch the two guys play. One guy is must watch, and one guy, great player, kind of boring. Even Rory showed a little emotion today, and Rory's more entertaining. Like Xander, there's zero entertainment. Cantlay is the most boring player on the PGA Tour. And that's what Phil had for so long. Phil was never Tiger. He was never going to be Tiger. But there was a peak stretch for like 7-8 years where Phil was making $70-80 million a year. Obviously, he was one of the great all-time players, but he was unique in the sense that he was fun. It was enjoyable. It was an enjoyable roller coaster to go on. And when you play in these major championships, it's not easy. You're going to get screwed, especially today. Like, you had no clue when you missed the fairway where you're going to end up. Are you going to end up in the sand? Were you going to end up in a footprint? Were you going to be in one of those little wiregrass bushes? Were you going to end up in a root under a tree? And when you can figure out ways to pull shots out of your you-know-what and make a par, that is fun. And Bryson, just an all-time performance of entertainment. So I tip my hat to him because, one, he won me money, but two, that was enjoyable to watch. We're this close to crowning an NBA champ. And with the action heating up on the court, it's even hotter at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. And DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered every step of the way with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Don't miss out as the NBA postseason winds down. It's super easy to just get started with DraftKings if you're a first-timer. Try betting on something like a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app, select your team, and place your first bet. It's that simple. And if you're new to DraftKings, you got to check this out. New customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers. Get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. And one thing I think we got today is, listen, a lot of people in the golf world bitched and moaned about the PGA Championship because Valhalla was too easy. Now, I'm not disagreeing. I would like the majors to be a very, very tough test. And that clearly was on the easy side of these guys just being able to attack pins. This was the polar opposite. And I do agree with the overall sentiment. Like, I like birdies as much as the next guy. But I do enjoy watching, and I wouldn't even call the last couple of days carnage, but just a course that the average person goes, I don't even think I could break 120 there. I don't even think I could par any hole if you gave me multiple shots. I would 3 and 4 putt every single green. I would have no chance to hit it out of anywhere if it was not in the fairway. And even if you're in the fairway, you might run through to the crap. Now, you could argue that Pinehurst is a very unique setup with the elevated greens, the wire stuff outside the fairways. Just, it's cool. And I think when we watch these majors, specifically the PGA Championship and the US Open, you want it to be really difficult. Like when you saw Bryson, when Xander won, he was extremely happy because he finally, as Steve Young once, or Gary Plummer said to Steve Young, take that monkey off my back. He got the monkey off his back. But that looked much more like a normal PGA Tour event than it did what we just witnessed. I mean, there were 8 guys under par. The winning score was 6 under par. Like, it should be extremely difficult to get a birdie. And every single hole, and part of what makes a major historically so awesome, besides the Masters has become a little easier to score, but even that can, show its teeth, is that on any given hole, at any given moment, a bogey is in play. And if you are to screw up, a double bogey is definitely in play. And that leads to the drama of the golf because you can have a 3-shot lead and all of a sudden Bryson's down 2. At Valhalla, that wasn't even in the cards. Even at the Masters, if you have a 2-shot lead with the last 3 or 4 holes, you're going to have to screw up pretty badly to make a double bogey. But as you saw today, like 3 putts were always in play. I don't care who you were. And we saw Rory essentially, he didn't 3-putt the last hole, but it felt like a 3-putt when you miss a, 3.5-foot comebacker. And Bryson 3-putted hole 15. It just felt like you were on the edge of your seat because anything was possible. And you had to be playing so well to even have a chance to get a birdie. Like when you made a birdie, it was a really, really big deal over the last 2 days. And I think a lot of people thought early on when some guys shot 4 or 5 under on Thursday, it's like, this is going to be, it's of course too easy for the boys. The equipment is too good. These guys are too dialed. No, it showed its teeth because the fairways were concrete and the greens might as well have been a driveway because you had, and it's hard early on to kind of feel that out if you've never played there. I've never played Pinehurst, but as it went on and on, you realize, that's going to roll off. Oh, that's screwed. So that guy, he's in trouble. And that includes the leaders and includes the random guys. But if you told me the U.S. Open was at Pinehurst every single year, I don't think many people would complain. I think we're lucky that we get basically now every 5 years at Pinehurst. But I love Pebble Beach. I grew up, on the West Coast in Northern California. It's like the Lambeau Field of golf out west. And the views, the scenic stretch on hole 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 with the water in the back, and then obviously 18 is hard to beat. But it doesn't have that. It doesn't have that difficulty because it's a much different test. They just grow out the rough, right? So you just either hit it in the fairway or you're in 6-inch rough, which anyone that's played golf knows that's miserable and it sucks. But that didn't feel like that at all today. There wasn't any rough. And yet it was still impossible for these guys. I mean, impossible. Scottie Scheffler, no human since Tiger has ever played golf as well as him, shot 8 over par. Never had a shot. Honestly, it was kind of refreshing to see that the guy's human. Now, I'm someone that put him in a lot of different parlays because I thought, how's Scottie not going to win this course or win at this course? And every single person that covers the sport was like, this course is tailor-made for Scottie Scheffler. And he got very lucky that the cut kind of came back to him. He ended up making the cut, but he didn't, obviously was never in it, but he even went back on the weekend. And I don't know if he just ran out of gas. Obviously had a lot going on in his life over the last month with, the felony charges that were dropped, a new child. But that was Rory's putt was the most shocking thing to happen this weekend by a mile, just the individual moment. But if you just put the aggregate, Scottie being nowhere to be found, I would say coming into the week would be stunning. If you told me he had an off week, if you told me to start the week, Scottie's not going to play well. Like, I bet he finishes 18th, 24th, plus 8. That's stunning. And like I said earlier, I think Xander, you can argue emotionally if he does a lot. He's not Bryson. He's not Rory. He doesn't move the needle anywhere near that. But the guy is just putting on a clinic on a weekly basis. His floor now is Rory level high. Like even when he's off, boom, T7. Like this guy just refuses to suck in any of these moments. And it's why, like, if you're taking the over-under on Xander majors, he's more likely to win 3 than he is to stay at 1. Just because, now, he was never in this tournament, but he's never bad in these moments. He is literally good every single time they play a major. And you do that enough, you're just going to run into some. And I think the one, back to Rory, God, that's hard to shake. If you tell me you don't see Rory till the Open Championship and he just kind of goes into a hole, I wouldn't blame him. because I know he just reconciled with his wife, so his family environment in theory is on back on the up and up. But I don't know how you sleep. I don't know how you sleep. And I would imagine Bryson, I don't think Bryson's a big drinker. I don't think he drinks at all, actually. Uh, is going to have a fun night drinking chocolate milk or something, protein shakes. But just an incredible U.S. Open. It's always awesome on Father's Day. It's tough, when your dad's not around because I used to watch these tournaments with my dad, and you could see Bryson get emotional. His dad, Bryson's from Fresno. His dad was like a teaching pro, worked in the golf business, obviously passed away a couple years ago. I'm just glad that his dad got to see him win the one at Wingfoot, but you could tell, not having his dad there, it's a really, really big moment. Like he said, he went to SMU because of Payne Stewart. He wore the Kangol hat. I don't think they call that in golf that, but he wore that style hat. He doesn't any longer, which is probably the right look. I think he looks better just in a normal kind of baseball golf hat, even with the Crushers logo on it, which is always funny to see. Bryson reps the live stuff pretty strong, but just an awesome champion. And he's coming, boys. He's coming. I don't know if he'll win the Open, but I don't even if you I would say he wins a Masters in his time for sure. He's definitely going to be a factor every time they play the PGA and US Open. Maybe the Open because of the wind and he plays the ball so high might never be a great fit for him, but I'd be stunned if he doesn't win the other two majors. Like if you said right now, does Bryson DeChambeau win a Masters? I would like bet everything that I have in my savings account right now on it. So cool moment. Hopefully everyone enjoyed. Everyone was entertained. I had a lot of fun, and I watched a lot of golf definitely the last 48 hours, but even the first 2 days, very, very, the entertainment factor was high.